So here I am ready to start knitting the heel. I have already knitted the 2 rows with the contrasting color. I have placed stitch markers on peg 1 and peg 14, and my heel will take place on those 14 pegs. This is the way I'm going to start it. I am going to knit 13 pegs. When I reach that 14 peg, I am going to take the loop off the peg. Taking the loop off the peg, then I'm going to take my working yarn and wrap it around the base of the peg, place the loop back on the peg, and that is the wrap and turn, and I'm going to knit from peg 13 over to peg 2. I'm reaching peg number 2. I knit it as normal, and then it's time to wrap peg 1. Simply take the loop off peg 1, hold it with your knitting tool, wrap the working yarn around peg 1, place the loop back on the peg, and you are ready to continue with the rows. Simply now knit from peg 2 over to peg 12. I have reached the peg before the 2 wraps. Peg 13 needs wrapped, so I'm going to lift the loop from peg 13, hold it, then I'm going to grab my working yarn, take it around the peg to the front of the peg, place the loop back on the peg, and now I'm ready to knit back. I'm going to knit back from peg 12 all the way to peg 3, then I'm going to wrap peg 2, and that is creating the first section of the heel. I am approaching the last peg that I need to wrap for the first section of the heel. This is peg 4 that I'm wrapping. For the next section of the heel, before you continue, make sure that you have all the wraps that you need. Over here I have peg 1, 2, 3, and 4 wrapped. On the other side, I have peg 14, 13, 12, and 11 wrapped. The middle pegs only have 1 loop on them. Now I am ready to proceed to the second section of the heel. For this section, it is fairly simple. All you're going to do is knit. You're going to knit from the peg before the peg with the 2 wraps. You're going to knit from that peg all the way to the peg with the 2 wraps on the other side. So let's take you to that process. So knitting, holding the knitting yarn nice and loose so your stitches stay loose. Get into that corner. Over here I have reached the peg with the 2 wraps on it. I am going to treat both loops as one. This is my working yarn at the very top. The 2 loops at the bottom, I simply lift them both at the same time. And now before I proceed to knit back to the other direction, I am going to wrap this peg number 12 again before I move back. Wrapping it one more time will prevent it from having a hole because of the turning back to knitting on the other direction. This time I do not lift the bottom 2 loops. I am simply just going to wrap the peg. So I take the working yarn to the inside of the knitting loom and then I wrap it around the peg and I leave that wrap right there, and then I continue knitting in the other direction. So that peg will end up with 3 loops on it as you continue knitting the other direction. I am going to show you that wrap again on the other side. I have reached peg number 4 that has the 2 loops, the loop and the wrap. I am simply going to knit it as normal, treating both of those loops as one loop. Lifting the bottom 2 up and off the peg. Now I'm going to wrap peg number 3 one more time. Knit from peg 4 all the way to the peg that has the 3 loops on it. I have reached the peg with the 3 loops, and this time I am going to knit the 3 loops as one. Lifting them all 3 at the same time off the peg. I'm just going to wrap the peg and continue knitting to the other direction. We are approaching the 14th peg that has the 3 loops on it. At this point, we are going to knit all 3 together as normal. Lift it up and off the peg Now if we leave it like that and then continue knitting back towards peg 1, this is going to create a hole between peg 14 and peg 15, and we want to avoid that. So in order to avoid that, we are going to wrap peg 15. So lift the loop from peg 15, and just like you wrapped before, wrap it at the bottom, and now knit back to peg 1. We are approaching peg 1 that has all 3 loops on it. Knit peg 1, trim the bottom 3 loops as 1. Now again, the same issue arises between peg 1 and the last peg, peg 28. The issue arises that if we go back and knit from peg 1 all the way around, we are going to have a hole between peg 1 and peg 28. And we want to avoid that hole. So in order to avoid it, we are going to wrap peg 28. So simply take the loop off peg 28, wrap the peg, place the loop back on peg 28, and now you have you have connected the yarn from peg 1 over to peg 28 to avoid that hole.